Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm Ukrainian Canadian. Today is November 17th, 2024, and let's get to the news and updates happening in Ukraine and Russia, shall we? So today I want to cover two updates. One is good and one is bad, so it's going to be a very brief and quick video. First, I'll cover the good news. And the first piece of news is a video that was shared by the Ukrainian forces last night of a successful Ukrainian HIMARS attack in Zaporizhia. And in this attack, an entire Russian platoon of about 40 to 50 soldiers was wiped out by the Ukrainian HIMARS missiles. You can see this is the before image, this is the after. You can see that the Ukrainians finished the Russians off with cluster munitions based on the various different impact craters that were formed following the attack. So this is good news, and I think this really confirms that there is a potential of a Russian offensive in this sector, because this occurred in the village of Tavria, which is about 25-30 kilometers away from the current front line in Robotyne and Orikhiv. You can see that this is not too far away, and you can see that the Russians are definitely concentrating more and more troops in this sector. So we have to keep a close watch over what's going to happen in the next few weeks, because we know that Putin is definitely going with the maximum pressure tactic. He wants to conduct as many offensives as possible and tries to apply as much pressure as possible throughout the Ukraine front line. The good news is that the Ukrainians do have drones, they do have watchful eyes, and they're able to pinpoint these Russian formations very quickly. So that's the good news. But we'll keep a close watch, because I did indicate that there's more and more reports that the Russians are planning something in Zaporizhia. Now, let's cover the less good news, and that is something that was expected. I've literally mentioned this in my previous video, that we should be expecting very soon a Russian missile barrage over Ukraine during the winter. And they're going to do this more often than before, and it didn't even take 2 days for it to happen, as the Russians were definitely stockpiling missiles for this. So the Russians launched a combined with missiles and UAVs, over 210 of them, and overnight, Ukraine was able to shut down 144 of these 210 missiles and UAVs, so about a 70% interception rate. But unfortunately, the remainder of the 30% was able to get through, hitting civilian buildings, the energy grid, infrastructure, etc. So unfortunately, this is what Putin has planned, and something that doesn't surprise us. I've literally mentioned this, that Putin right now is trying to create unbearable conditions for the winter of 2024-2025 in Ukraine. Maximum terror, and they're going to try to demoralize the Ukrainian population to force Ukraine to capitulate within the Trump inauguration. And mainly because of a crippled energy grid. Ukraine was already struggling before this with the constant shutdowns, the rationing of the electricity. And so it's not like it's a surprise to us. And Putin is really betting on this Trump administration to force Ukraine to negotiate on unfavorable terms and have a bad deal pushed to Ukraine again, a Minsk 3. Because as we've seen, no phone calls between Putin and other Western leaders is going to convince Putin to stop this. And I'm talking about the Scholz-Putin phone call. I do understand the necessity of having an open communication line with the Kremlin, but we can't bet on the Kremlin in act in good faith. We understand that Putin and his strategy is all about destroying Ukraine, destroying the Ukrainian independence, its statehood, and he's going to be aiming for that. And he feels like the wind is in his favor, and he's going to try to put the most amount of pressure in the next few months to really showcase that Russia is strong, Russia's invincible, which we know they aren't. We know that economically speaking, Russia is doing terrible, and it's a matter of when the Russian economy is going to collapse. The Russian military is in shambles as well. Yes, they can continue putting pressure, but I don't think you're going to be able to put that much pressure, the same type of intensity, for another year with the tremendous losses that they've been facing. They would not have been going to North Korea asking for their troops if things were going great for Russia, militarily speaking. And we really need to understand that. This was my I guess the speech that I made in my previous video, that the West needs to start providing a strategy and a vision how they're planning to force Russia on the negotiating table without having Ukraine to pay the price like they did in Minsk 1 and Minsk 2. Russia needs to pay a price for its aggression, for its destruction of Ukraine. And you can't do it at the expense of Ukraine. And I'm hoping that the West, again, my hope is dwindling day by day, will provide final permission for Ukraine to strike back with their long-range weapons, the Scalps, the Storm Shadows, the Atacams, on Russian territory, retaliate back on the Russian energy grid, its infrastructure, its military factories, its military bases and airfields, to be able to set a message to Russia, a message of strength. That's really important. And I'm also hopeful with the talks of Zelensky mentioning that they've been developing its own missile program. We know that Ukraine has the Neptunes that they've been developing that have already been used in the past, the Hrim 2s, that they've been stockpiling a sort of reserve of these long-range missiles to be able to retaliate back against Russia. I'm really hoping that's going to happen as well, because Ukraine has to retaliate back. This is unacceptable. After 3 years, and Ukraine is still being forced to, to fight with a hand tied behind its back. It's absolutely unacceptable, and there is no more fair play here. Ukraine needs to be able to retaliate the same way as Russia is doing it to Ukraine. So with all that, guys, please, right now, more than ever, your support and help is absolutely necessary for the Ukrainians. And if you have any money, any spare dollars you want to donate, please donate to the Ukrainian drone program. I'll leave a link in the description below to the Rusuri's drone fund, which is going to help the Ukrainians demilitarize as many Russian occupiers as possible, which is very necessary and important right now. As we know, the winter will be very difficult for the Ukrainians ahead, and it's absolutely necessary that you guys also offer a little bit of support to the Ukrainian people. Thank you so much. Slava Ukraini!